Welcome to Life, Biz and All That Jazz, the podcast where real talk meets transformation. If you're navigating mental health, healing from trauma, or building a life that actually feels like yours, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Jasmine Lisciotto, and every week we dive into the messy to the beautiful, to the tools, the techniques, the emotion, everything that goes in with healing, from the transformation until living life fully aligned. If you're new here, welcome. Welcome to the beginning of your transformation. And if you come back for more and you're an OG, thank you for coming back for more. I really, really appreciate your support. So today's episode is for the people pleasers, the high achieving women, anyone who has felt like they have lost their identity and become a person that they don't really understand. People that know that they've been affected by their childhood, have experienced trauma and developed these certain coping mechanisms that are really just getting them by. We talk about uncovering these coping mechanisms and how they relate to our behaviors and our beliefs as adults. We discuss boundaries, which is one of my favorite topics, and we just talk about self-respect as a whole, what we want from our lives and how setting boundaries can be difficult, but we really uncover that they aren't that difficult and they do start to show progress from the beginning. And today's episode is with Angie Hawkins. Angie is based in Hawaii. She's now living her dream life with her red convertible, surfing every day, and has a great story to tell. So she did hit her rock bottom, but she shares her story now and she's in the space of coaching to help other people not have to get to that point. And I think it's so important what she's sharing, and I'm so excited to bring her in. So let's have a chat now with Angie. Welcome, Angie Hawkins, to Life, Biz and All That Jazz.
Hi, Jasmine. Thank you for having me.
The pleasure is all mine. So what I like to start with at the start of the episode is really like taking it back to the beginning, before we have our transformations, because I think that's a really important part for people to see, how far that we have come and what brought us to where we are today. Because most of the listeners, they're really in the thick of it, or they're in the middle of it, trying to just navigate life and life's challenges. So one thing I wanted to touch on, which I think was really important, is something that you shared previously, is you stopped people pleasing and you started setting boundaries and you rebuilt your life. So I'd love for you to just take us back to kind of like before you had the realization that you needed to implement that into your life.
Yeah, I'll take it all the way back to childhood.
As far as you want to go.
I think that's where all of our things really start.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think my story will be relatable to a lot of people. I had emotionally unavailable parents, and as an adult, I understand what that means and why it is, etc. But as a child, I wasn't able to understand any of that. So I interpreted the situation in that I didn't deserve to be loved. So I developed that limiting belief from a very young age. I thought I didn't deserve to be loved. So as you probably are aware, your limiting beliefs drive your behaviors, which attract all your various experiences into your life. And so I went through a big majority of my life with that limiting belief. So I felt like I had to chase and perform for love and approval. So I was caught up in that hamster wheel for a very long time. I people pleased because I cared more about what other people thought of me than what I thought of myself. That showed up in all areas of my life. I think it showed up a lot in the workplace because I was overachieving at jobs that didn't respect me, but I always felt like I had to achieve and earn and perform in order to actually feel worthy. And also I ran away from my feelings until in 2017, my boyfriend broke up with me and then my dad passed away. And I was plummeted into this profound grief that I was not able to run away from. And so I actually was forced to face my feelings. However, I didn't know how emotional regulation, like I didn't know how to deal with my feelings. So I spent the rest of that year just feeling like a zombie in the void because I just didn't know how to navigate the situation at all. And then I got to a place where it's like, okay, I want to have a better life, because I knew what I had been doing wasn't working, but I wasn't really sure why. But I decided, okay, I want to be happy now. I want to do more and be more. And I was living in Chicago, and I decided that I wanted to move to Hawaii, which was well intentioned in that, again, I was like trying to be happy and trying to have a better life. But it was not well intentioned in the sense that I was still looking for things outside of myself to be the thing that made me happy. Because I thought, well, if I live in a better place, then that would be the thing that made me happy. And, I don't think I have to say that was not the case. So when I moved, all my problems came with me. Plus I developed a new host of problems. This was in 2018 when I moved here. So that was before remote work was the trendy thing to do. I moved and I kept my job. But then as soon as I moved, there was this huge management shakeup at work. So for the first year that I lived here, I lived in constant fear of losing my job. I also had a really hard time making friends, and any other friends that I had were thousands of miles away. So it just felt really lonely and isolating. And the other major thing that happened when I moved here, I bought a condo immediately to prove how all in I was on this decision. And a shared pipe backflowed into my bathroom sink, and I wasn't home. So my brand new condo flooded, which would be stressful anyway. But with all this other stuff going on, it was a lot. And then for the next 2 years, it was just like thing after thing after thing. And then COVID happened. And so my point is, it's like, because I was reaching for things outside of myself to be the thing that made me happy, and all of these things outside of myself were unraveling and not going very well, then my internal world was also unraveling and not doing very well. And the straw that broke the camel's back was at the end of a relationship during COVID. He lied to me, and I just felt very betrayed, which in isolation, yeah, like I think that would hurt anyone. But again, this was like on top of, like, first of all, a lifetime of feeling like I didn't deserve to be loved. And then this like 2.5 year period where it was just like thing after thing after thing. And I think we all have these moments in life where it's like, oh, I can't take this anymore. But not only did I feel like that, I just had this overwhelming feeling of hopelessness. And I just could not see any hope for the future. So I intentionally overdosed on my anxiety medication because I just could not handle it. And I was unconscious in my bathroom for a day and a half. I was blacked out, but I somehow managed to text a friend, and she took me to the hospital, and I was in the hospital for a day and a half. And when I was released from the hospital, I went home and I called a friend and I told her what happened. And her response was, "It's not your time." And it was so profound, yet exactly what I needed to hear, because that's what made me realize, like, okay, I think I have a purpose and I want to figure out what it is. And so in that decision, because I was at a crossroads, because it's like I still felt how I did before I took the pills. So it was like, okay, I can either try again because now I know it didn't work and I can try something that worked, or I can choose to, get help and actually live life the right way. And those words from her are exactly what I needed. So I decided, like, I want to get help and I want to start actually living my life. So I invested in myself and I hired a coach. And that is how I learned to set boundaries and stop people pleasing, basically stop abandoning myself. And through those behaviors, because like he never told me, like, hey, I'm going to teach you how to love yourself. He's like, hey, I'm going to teach you these behaviors. And through little steps, becoming bigger steps, becoming actually, like, these aren't even things that I think about doing anymore. Because I used to have to, like, intentionally, like, tell myself, do this, do that. And now they're just automatic behaviors. And then doing that, that's what changed my internal world. So
Thank you
that's
so much for sharing that.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing that and being vulnerable. Like, I think what you've shared will be very relatable to a lot of listeners. And it's really hard too, because we often get through life and we do have a lot of things build up. And like you said, when you're relying on external factors to make you happy and not really focusing from within, it's it's easy to lose track of that. And I think it comes back to is that we need to build that trust and do that work. And it's not easy, is it? Like, it's not easy.
No.
And we build the coping mechanisms through life, especially when you experience things as child, and the beliefs that we have don't have to be what we want in a way. That's what we learned. We've grown up, we understand that as something that's embedded. And I think what's really powerful is when you do the work and you do uncover those limiting beliefs and see, like, why am I doing this? It's so interesting. And I'm sure you've had the same realization as you think, oh, well, that's why I do that. That's why I put up with that. And that was my coping mechanism. And it's just that unraveling of, like, all the work. And I think something really important that you mentioned about, it's the small steps. And it's not about, like, having that end goal of, I'm going to be the best version of myself. You can think that, but you don't actually do things to get to that. It's all the little things, and then they all just evolve. And then one day you get to a point where you're like, wow, like, this is who I am. Like, I'm proud of who I am.
And I like that you actually use the word proud, because that's how I feel on a daily basis. Because I'll catch myself doing things that's like a gazillion times more healthy and functional than how I used to do things. And I'm like, wow, I'm really proud of myself, because I just imagine how older versions of me would have handled certain things.
And we need to celebrate and do that. Once you have been through a lot, and you do the work and you get to the other side, you're just grateful. And especially for yourself, to get to that moment, like that darkness of just thinking that there was no other escape. And I've had a lot of the thoughts about, I don't want to be here anymore. I've never attempted. It's a little bit different. I lost my dad to suicide 9 years ago. And I think in a way that showed me that I don't want to leave the world like that. What it feels like with your family and stuff like that. And in a way, like, I honor his name now by doing this. And this is why I share and, talk to other people that have been in those situations. And it's hard to explain it, but it is a dark place. And it's usually a lot of things that are building up, and we're holding them in, and knowing that we deserve to be here and we are enough. And that's what I love to share. And, have, like, with yourself, you're so brave for sharing your story, because so many people will hear it and know that no one is ever alone. We're not alone, and things are going to happen, but we need to try and stop them from getting to a point.
No, that's very well said. And that's exactly why I share my story. Not that it's necessarily enjoyable to talk about, but first of all, I want people to know that they're not alone. And also, so many other people go through this and we're not talking about it. So let's just talk about it. And another reason I share my story is because I had to hit rock bottom before I made changes. And it's a lot harder to pull yourself out from that place. Like, obviously I can do it, but I don't want people to get to that point, because I knew things were slowly unraveling. I just wasn't doing anything about it. So if you're going down that path, you can put a stop to it right now. So I also share my story for awareness of that. Like, do not get to rock bottom before you have to make changes in your life.
I definitely preach that a lot as well. And that's why what we're sharing today is giving people that ideas and, letting them know that before you get to that point. What are some of the signs that you feel like you noticed before but didn't really acknowledge?
I just remember feeling really, first of all, exhausted, because how I was living, like the people pleasing and always giving outside of myself, it just felt very exhausting. Another thing was just, I always felt really frustrated, because I felt like there should be a better way to live. I just didn't know what it was. And I always felt like, oh, I just need to fix something about myself. So I was the kind of person, like, I would read self-help books, and I would, do some like spiritual practices and stuff, which those things in isolation are not negative, but I wasn't doing that inner work to be my own source of happiness and fulfillment, so that there was something missing, but I just didn't realize the missing part was something that was like the inner work that I wasn't doing. So it was just like that frustration, that exhaustion. Another thing, I had a pattern of drawing in like very toxic relationships. And so it's like, I know there's something there. I just don't know how to fix it.
I was similar with relationships. I had some therapy regarding relationships because I was cheated on, and then I thought, oh, I've got this now.
Yeah.
I've got it. But it's like the therapy, I didn't uncover everything. I wasn't honest with
Oh,
what it
that's
went.
interesting.
Yeah, like I just kind of was like dealing with stuff, but then I think a lot of it went back to seeing my mum and dad's relationship when I was younger, and obviously my dad with bipolar, like that was, you know, a lot of ups and downs, and just seeing stuff like that of what was tolerated, and very different being in a space that's obviously mental health. So, you know, my mum always tried to support my dad as much as she could.
Yeah.
But then I guess I identified things as like, oh, well, it's sometimes maybe that toxic relationship. It's all right. I can fix them. I can help them. I couldn't help my dad, but maybe I can help this guy. So that's where I was like the fixer.
Yes, I was too. That's very relatable.
Yeah. And it's just, that's the thing. It's so interesting too, because like you do all this stuff and you uncover it, and then you look back and you kind of like dissect all these things that you've done. And sometimes you might do something now and you react differently because you know you listen and you feel it if you've been triggered, and you're like, okay, well, how can I work on this? And then you think back of how you would have reacted, you know, 10-15 years ago, and think of like, oh, it kind of, in a way, it makes me laugh sometimes, you know, just in a nice way, like just to be happy for where I'm at and the growth that I've had, and to think of like that younger version of how I would have reacted to certain situations to where I'm at now.
Yeah, and also, does it give you a sense of relief? Because the way I used to react to situations, I would actually go as far as to say it exacerbated the situation, you know, because it would like feed into it. Whereas now you're able to like separate yourself from the situation and actually react in a healthy, functional way. And it's actually a relief, because it's like you don't carry the burden of all the reactivity going on.
And that's the thing too. It's like stepping out of the situation before reacting, and more so probably not even like reacting, like kind of having that awareness and like acceptance. And instead of coming at it as like a negative reaction, it's more like, okay, well, where is this at? And I think a big thing as well is the perceptions, removing perceptions people have of me, or the way that someone might perceive something that I do, or the way I perceive someone else. It not necessarily is what they're trying to get across, or certain stuff like that. That became a real realization, kind of like magnifying out of situations in a way. I look at things very differently, where I'm not coming into a place of like, this is the only way it should be, really having that openness.
Yeah, I relate to that too. Because even if like now, if I disagree with someone, like before, it's like, oh, I needed to like make them understand my point. And it's like, now I don't even care. It's so weird. Like when you, again, I think it's like the whole like internal focus, like I'm happy within, and that's really all that matters. You know, like other people are just other things, and I accept them as who they are and where they're at in life.
And that's it. If you want people to accept you, like you've done so much work too, and I really feel this deeply, is like, I want people to know who I am and accept me for me and my decisions and where I want to be with the future and what I do. That you have to also accept other people. But then it's hard because not everyone's going to be like that.
Yeah.
And not everyone wants to put in the work. And then that's when boundaries is really important. So I'd love to talk more a bit about boundaries, because I did an episode on this earlier on, a solo episode, and I really enjoyed it because I talked a lot, because the boundaries has been hard for me to set, and I break it down where you should be able to set boundaries with people in your space, and you have to approach it in a kind way, because not everyone understands it. When you've done the work, you know what it's like. You can set boundaries for yourself, but when it comes to like loved ones and having to tell them that you don't want to hear about certain topics of stuff because it brings negative on you, or like the small talk. There's certain things that may upset other people when you are putting boundaries for yourself. So I'd love
Yes.
to get your take on, boundaries and what it was like for you kind of setting boundaries at the start.
My biggest lesson with boundaries, because when I first of all, just to start off, I didn't even know what boundaries were until I was 35 years old. I read a
Yeah.
book about boundaries and it blew my mind because I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't know I was allowed to say no, so then I got all motivated to set boundaries and I just couldn't because it was too scary. I didn't know what I was doing. So it wasn't until after my breakdown that I hired a coach that I started learning about boundaries again. But even then, I realized that the hardest part wasn't just setting them, it was enforcing them.
Yeah. And
Because,
sticking to them.
yes, because I was like, oh, yes, I'm going to go set boundaries now. And I was all motivated and I was not prepared for how many people like really didn't care what my boundaries were and wanted to step all over them. And I was like,
Mm,
oh, okay, this is where the work is. And it's not easy. It became easier for me when I determined that like my number one value for life is that I'm loyal to myself. And that
mm,
changed my whole mindset because it's like, I'm not going to make you comfortable at the sake of my own discomfort, or I'm not going, you know what I mean? I'm not going to please you because you're making me uncomfortable or doing something I asked you not to do or whatever the situation is. So it's like I just learned to value my own peace and respect way more than whatever else is going on with me. And that's not to say that it's still not hard because it became easier in certain situations, like at work or other situations. But I had to set a boundary with my mom, and I haven't talked to her in 3 years. And that
mm.
was really hard. It still is hard sometimes. But again, it's the whole accepting people where they are and again valuing my own peace and energy.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it would be hard to, set a boundary like that, I think, for myself, because for me it was a lot of like talking about energy. So I'm very big on like consuming people's energies, or
Same.
like even just talking. Like if I'm hearing something that's, negative, that's not really about something that's happening somewhere in the world. Like I do appreciate learning about things that are happening in the world, but sometimes I'll get too consumed in them and I'll like want to save the world. So like, things that are happening politically, like I
Yeah.
can't. So this is just obviously a smaller example, but it's more like telling someone that you don't want to talk about that. It sounds so simple, but for someone that like wants to just talk about anything, or that they like to watch the news, or that
Yeah.
it's like, well, I want to know what's happening in the world. And I think like energy is a very big boundary to set, and like what you let into your space, also like the people you let into your space and how they are, like if they put in too much on you. And you know at the end of the day, there's lots of areas with boundaries. You've obviously got your relationships, then you've got your workplace, but then it
Yes.
really comes back to it comes back to yourself. Like, what are you allowing yourself to do, and what boundaries are you setting for yourself to follow? So yeah, I always love talking about boundaries, because for me, I didn't. It was only a few years ago that I really done the deeper work on the boundaries too, and understood it from a level. So I knew there was like boundaries, like you don't want to do something, you can say no, but
Yeah.
it's harder when you are people pleasing and, or constantly doing it. And I think as well is like not just being able to speak up and speak your mind, and knowing that if you do, you might hurt somebody's feelings, but if they love you, like they know that you're coming from a good place. It's
Yeah.
if they don't respect that, like you know yourself, like it's not easy to cut people off, especially when it's family. But you have to. It's our life. This is our one life as well. Like we can't cater to everybody's needs.
Yeah. And I love how you brought up energetic boundaries too, because I think at the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to. But
Yes.
I had that exact conversation with someone earlier today about like the stuff that's going on in the world. Like, I'm not saying you should put your head in the sand and not care,
Mm.
but when you're like talking about it and feeding into that energy, you're kind of contributing to the problem. So I like to look at it as like, I'd rather just put good energy towards that situation, because there's a lot of things that are going on in the world right now at an individual level. There's nothing we can do other than
Yes.
put the good energy toward it. So it's like, I'd rather spend like keep myself in a higher vibration so I can put the good energy toward it, as opposed to like getting wrapped up in that fear propaganda and the anger, and just, like it goes down this whole cycle. And when people talk about it and feed into it, I don't like it, because I feel like it's just contributing to the situation energetically.
I love that. You explained that really good. I think that's really important for people to understand that we can. I guess that there's a thing as well with a lot of things that are happening in the world is like sharing on social media. Like a lot of people will share stuff
Yeah.
like every day. I sometimes have to like mute what people share because it's actually really traumatic, and
Yeah, I
like
agree.
it affects me, and then it might be like an hour or something after. So, and that's, I think, another boundary is like what you're consuming from a social media perspective, because that's like something quite new in a way. It's, if we don't realize what we're following, what we're
Yeah.
seeing daily, it's that comparison. So there's like another like kind of social media boundary that I have, that I don't really follow anything. I like, if people are doing it, then I'll just have to mute them.
Yeah, it's hard though on social media though, because you don't have to be following someone for
Oh, the
something to show up
algorithm.
in your feed. Yeah, because I liked it before when it's like I could just choose who I followed and what I saw, but it is like
Yeah.
worse now that just random stuff pops up.
The suggestions, isn't
Yeah.
it? So something that you mentioned earlier as well, I've got some notes. I always take my notes. So we've talked about the people pleasing perfectionism. You mentioned like emotional caretaking was like a survival mechanism and not your identity. So that something that you really had to remove?
Yes, because I always like I grew up, I felt like I was responsible for, in hindsight, both of my parents' emotions, but mostly my mom's. And so I always felt like I was her emotional caretaker. And it was funny because in the last few conversations with her, she was blaming me for how she felt. And I was like, oh, this is why I always thought I was responsible for her feelings, because she put me in that role. And I had always
Mm,
just blindly assumed that role. And it wasn't until I started my healing journey that I was like, no, I don't think I am responsible for your feelings. Um,
no.
but anyway, again, because that was my belief in childhood, like I'm responsible for other people's feelings, that just carried on into mostly romantic relationships. But I would say that it actually manifested in some friendships and other situations as well, because I always felt like I had to caretake and make sure like I was pleasing that. Again, it was like the people pleasing aspect of things. Like, I want to make sure like they're happy and they're happy with me. And it's like, I wasn't even taking 1 second, especially with some boyfriends that I look back on in hindsight. It's like, I wasn't even taking 1 second to think, do I really even like them? Because I was so concerned about them liking me and
Yeah.
them loving me. And it's actually kind of ridiculous now that I think about it.
But at least you can laugh about it now
Yeah.
and you can see how far you've come, because I think it's like wanting that like gratification and that
Yeah.
you're accepted.
Yeah. Like I'm earning it. Like I've earned their love now because I did all these things.
When really, like it's like I finding someone that like they're lucky to have me.
Yeah.
Like that kind of energy should be in a way. Now that's how I think now, is I know that my future husband I will meet, and he'll be exactly who I need because I've done the work, and he'll see what I've done, and then I'll see that. Like it's just going to intertwine and
Yeah.
connect and live happily ever after.
No, I agree. I have that same vision.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're in Hawaii now. So what's the lifestyle like there for like how you are now with your journey? Do you find it's kind of fits in, or?
The
What are your thoughts?
lifestyle has absolutely helped with my journey because, especially because I used to be like highly anxious. So when I lived in Chicago, it's like fast paced,
Yeah,
and like
city.
here it's like way more laid back. So that's helped a lot. Also, since moving here, I learned how to surf. And like there's
Oh,
so
cool.
many transferable lessons in surfing to life. So like that's been extremely helpful for me. Like the biggest one is like, do you know the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset?
Yeah, well, fixed is kind of like it is kind of stuck in a way. And then
Yes.
you've got your growth mindset, which is like constantly growing. I'm a growth mindset person. Yeah.
So I used to be fixed, and then so which a aspect of fixed mindset is you if you're not immediately good at something, like you just quit and you don't continue to do it.
Yeah.
um so I started surfing during COVID because everything was closed except the ocean, and I wasn't immediately good at it. And if it wasn't for COVID, I absolutely would have quit because I was just, because I even told myself for a long time, this isn't for me. When everything opens up, I'm going to quit. Like I would constantly tell myself, I'm going to quit surfing. This isn't for me. And then I finally turned a corner where my progress started to get better. And then I was like, oh, I can get better at this. And I actually was like motivated to improve. So surfing actually taught me about a growth mindset. And that's just one example, but there's so many transferable lessons from surfing to life. So that's been a huge part of my healing journey.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. Like, because, a lot of people do love surfing. I guess they continue to do it once they get to a point. Some people do it from younger. I know a lot of people that do surf, they love going for a morning surf. It
Yeah.
like clears their head, and that really has that possibilities. And then to think of what it's taught you while you were learning. So now are you pro? Are you pro
Oh
surfer?
no, I'm not. I'm not that good. I'm decent, but I'm not pro by
Can
any
you
means.
like go in? I know a bit about surfing. I don't surf. I used to do nippers, like surf life saving activities at the beach growing up
Yeah.
here in Australia. I pretty much grew up on the beach, so very lucky.
Okay.
And like, can you go on the barrel?
I've never been barreled. No.
Nah, no. But
But
like when you
in
surf
all
along it.
in all fairness, though, barrels are highly dependent on the conditions.
True.
So it's not necessary. I think I actually could get barreled, but I've never been in that position because I don't surf those conditions. So
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking. I'm thinking of like Hawaii. They always have a lot of like surf comps, but I guess it depends where you are on the island. It's a big
yeah.
island.
And like the major comps are usually on the North Shore where it's pretty big.
Yeah.
Like 5 foot is my limit. Like I'll go out if it's a little bit bigger, but I'm not trying to like rip it up in those conditions.
So you love surfing, that's one of your hobbies. What else do you do now to help yourself find that joy and continue on like with your growth mindset and your healing journey? Because for myself, healing is like lifelong. I feel like I'm
Oh, for
constantly going
sure.
to grow, and yeah, so I'd love to hear about where you're at now with that.
Well, you brought up joy, and this is in my coaching clients, this is like the one thing that I drive home because this is all about self love. Like, do at least one thing a day that brings you joy. Because I used to just like work,
Perfect.
sleep, whatever. But this goes right back to surfing. I surf almost every day because that's the thing that brings me joy. And
Oh,
that
I love that.
yeah, and that's also changed my life a lot. And it's not even just the surfing, it's like being in the ocean, being outside, like being part of a community. And like, yeah, just doing that and having that practice of doing like one thing a day that brings me joy, at least one thing a day, preferably
Mm.
more than one. But like,
Yeah.
that's like totally changed my life. So, like, that's like the easiest thing that anyone can implement in their life to be happier.
That's good. Yeah. I think for me, joy, like today, my joy is doing podcast.
Yeah.
So that's something I really love. This is like my passion project. I have my marketing business on the side, but then this is my passion where like it all obviously comes back to losing dad. And then even though he had his battles, he had a few chances after failed times of taking his life that he got to turn his life around, but fortunately it also got too much for him. I think at the time he didn't have the right help and stuff as well. Didn't he was very strong-minded and trying to be strong and come from that type of family, and being male, I think, as well made things harder. So for me doing this brings me joy in a way, and it's sad, but like I'm sharing his legacy and to help people to share what people go through, and that you can make it through the other side, and that it's tough, but you don't have to do things alone. Everyone has someone that will understand them. There's so many people here, and you might not be someone directly, but you will. There is someone out there, and that's why I always say about podcasts, and why I kind of like did the podcast, because people find you can listen to a podcast anywhere on your own at any time. Yeah.
And I love how you're so compassionate toward your dad, because I feel like there's another reason I speak up. I feel like there's a lot of stigma around suicide being selfish. And I understand where that comes from. But like on the other side of it, it's like I try to, and it's hard to explain to people. The best way I can explain is if your leg got cut off, you would be focused on your leg and like the blood gushing out of your leg. You wouldn't be focused on, oh, everyone would be so upset if I died. Like the emotional pain is just as bad as if your leg got cut off. And so you're only focused on that. And so I also spread the word, because if someone actually attempts and succeeds, they're not able to explain why they did it. So I also like to share that message for people who may not understand it as much, if that makes sense.
That's exactly right. And I think it's getting better and better, but the numbers aren't changing. I'm doing a neuroscience course to help me understand more about the brain, in which I really want it to like complement the podcast, because I love to research and I do my own research on different topics and everything. So I thought, well, why not get like a certificate for it? The subject I'm doing at the moment is actually on suicide prevention, and it's been very eye-opening, and also like brought up some memories. But the statistics are still growing, and they're so high, and it's like the stigma's still there. Like we can put all these prevention methods in, and it's hard to to get things across. There's a lot of research now about like childhood trauma, biology, and everything like that. But then it's also about environment, like the environment that you're in, like feeling like you mentioned as well, like the loneliness and things piling up and building up. And then sometimes you can't, we're not superheroes. We can't do it. And then when there's a link between trauma, childhood trauma, and life stresses, the risks increase. And if someone's not been through either, they're more likely the ones that are going to say it's selfish. It's hard. And I think we just need to keep talking about it and spreading our word as much as we can, because we understand it from different perspectives, and on a deeper side. And hopefully the stigma will release a little bit, but it's still there. And especially with people like that are strong and, have built these coping mechanisms, because for years I didn't tell anyone how I was feeling. I just drank wine. Like I just bottled it all down. And then I got to a point and like my best friends were like, I didn't realize, and I said, well, I only ever knew how to be strong. I grew up seeing and even though my dad had his moments, he still was strong. Like he tried to fight till the last day, but he had bipolar. So that's something else, and something that couldn't be explained, and a lot of other, stress factors that come into play. So everyone's different in a way when it comes to it. But I think overall, like we're all just human.
Yeah. And that's why I like to have these conversations, because it's like, life is hard. We all struggle. So why not talk and support each other? Oh, and you mentioned something else. And I think another thing that really contributed to my situation is that I was surrounded by a lot of unloving and unsupportive people. So your environment does make a huge difference, because it's like when that's what you're submerged in, that's all you see for your future. And it just seems really bleak. But that's all I deserved. So
and that's it, and that's all you knew. Like, and we everyone that's in a situation right now, most people won't know. And I felt like for years I just coasted life. And it's not till I'm in my position now where I look back and think I was just surviving. But I
Yeah.
didn't know, but I'm not hard on myself for it because like I didn't know any better at the time. And like I was saying before, I'm proud getting to this moment where I have done the work and uncovered it all, and it's not easy, it's not fun, but it's worth it. I think at the start it's more just deciding on like what you want to work on. You kind of just have to really see who you are. Like, who am I? Do I know who I am? Who am I if I remove like my like business profile, like if you're a parent or wife, and who am I when I remove that? If you don't know and you've got all these feelings and you just have that in something inside you that you want better, then it's just slowly uncovering that.
Yeah, and that's why like the whole foundation of my coaching program, it's called Shine from the Inside, because we're all born with this light inside of us, and then it slowly gets dimmed by family systems and society and whatever. But the whole concept is built around going back to who you were before the world taught you who to be. Because
Yeah.
you bring up a good point. Like, I lost my entire identity, and my whole healing journey basically revolved around like, who am I now? And I basically came back home to, because the things I'm doing now were the things that lit me up as a little girl. Like, I always wanted to live in Hawaii. I always wanted to have a red convertible, so it's like I'm like living, I wanted to be a writer and I published a book, and so it's like I'm
Wow.
living out the things that like lit me up as a child but had been dimmed for all these years. So it's just coming back to yourself, and which goes back to the point, because I think we were talking about this earlier, it's not about fixing yourself, or like there's nothing wrong with you, it's just your light has been dimmed.
That's so interesting because I've done a podcast recently, and in exactly the same. Some like there's so many people out there that like yourself as a coach, and I'd love to talk more about what you do and how people can reach out to you. I'll put all the details and links in the show notes. You come from a place to where you've been through it and you've done the work. In a way, what you do is you are telling people it's just about coming back to yourself. And I
Yeah,
think that's really, really important. So, and what's your book called? I wrote it down.
it's called Running in Slippers.
Running in Slippers. Yes, I made notes. I've got notes
Okay.
here. And your program, is that the Inner Glow program?
Yes, I call it Shine from the Inside. And I have the method I use is called the Glow method. And G
Yes.
is going back to your childhood and figuring out who you were before the world told you who to be. But yeah, it's a whole program of rediscovering yourself. And a huge foundation of it is setting boundaries, because that is the highest form of self respect. And once you get your boundaries together, like, you start moving different in the world, because you just have this whole new sense of self respect.
And it's like stepping stones, isn't it? You kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
you implement
You don't
you
start
implement
big.
one thing and
Yeah.
then something else opens up. And it's not right away that you do kind of see the progress, but it kind of then it happens. And I think what can be hard for people to do the work is not having the right support, like environment, not
Right.
understanding, but expecting like instant gratification. We're talking most people decades of
Yeah.
trauma, built-in trauma. Like our nervous systems are like just, I don't know, like I'm thinking like a steam train. If you're
Yeah.
right, like right in the thick of it, our nervous systems are just surviving, and you have to unpack that. And one thing I remembered as well, like from when I started to really unpack things and remove those beliefs and learn new beliefs and reconditioning my mindset, was it's like I had the release, but then it was also like I just felt tired as well. So that's something when you're kind of go, 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 and
Yeah. I went
high
through that too.
stress. Yeah, it's like your body just doesn't know how to handle it, and it's also draws you back to wanting that stress.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I still struggle with this, but I feel like guilty for resting. And like, to your point, so it's
Yeah.
like, okay, so I need to do something to get back into that energy. But
Mm.
it's actually very healthy to rest.
Yes, I love just spending time on my own now and just like recharging, and that's especially when it comes to like my ADHD, is that I need those times on my own, because if I don't, like I can't be my best self. I need to like fully like recharge my batteries. and my energy needs to reset. And that's when it comes back to doing the things of joy and, you know, being happy and knowing that. And boundaries has changed my life when it comes to that.
Yeah, I think if someone truly wanted to change their life and didn't know where to start with boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing too. Like, I do have my earlier episode on boundaries, but even just jump on Google and search boundaries. ChatGPT, most people use that now. You know, like if you don't have time to listen to a full one, there's so much information out there. And I think just to understand it, and then, you know, then you've got the next step, like reach out to someone like yourself and get that support, because there's such thing as, they call it, the healing loop. And we can spend years and years trying to fix things and get to a point, but some of us, we can't do it on our own. You need that help. And I'm big for that, whether there's so many modalities and so many ways and so many people out there. But I think getting help from someone that's been through it and understands it, and especially with your method, is letting them understand that they just got to come back to themselves.
Yeah. And also with boundaries, because we were talking before, they are hard, but depending on how bad your boundaries are when you start, there are like quick wins that like build your confidence immediately. Because I started from a place of zero boundaries. So even if like someone invited me to do something and I didn't want to do it, and saying no, like that was so terrifying to me. But like doing it would give me that confidence to set the next bigger boundary. So there actually are quick wins that you can implement with boundaries right away. So I don't want to make it sound like all doom and gloom, because
that's it. And I think the way that we have explained it in a way, like it's not easy, but it's just like things do come out, and once you do start, things will start to flow. Yes. And then it gets easier and easier, but it's really just getting over that top peak. And that's why I always try to be like as authentic as I can and not sell someone a dream that you're going to be healed in a month, or like, you know what I mean? Like there's things will change in a month, but it can be years. And that's what it took for years. And then, like I said before, it's like I'm still in that mode where lifelong learning and lifelong growing, that growth mindset. Like, how can I constantly be better and share that?
Because I think first of all, you should always be working on yourself, but it does take time to implement changes. Like my program, for most people, I recommend 6 months. And some people are like, well, can we just do 3? And it's like, we can. I don't think you'll see the level. Because again, there's quick wins you can implement in the first month. They'll see some results. But I'm like, if you really want to see results, it's probably going to take about 6 months. Honestly, even longer. But like just to get you to where you really want to be is going to take 6 months.
Yeah. And that's it. Like being honest with people. And again, it depends how much work they've got to do.
Yeah. And that's true. And some people could get away with 3 months if they've already done some work.
If they understand. And then I guess how much time and energy have they got to put in is another thing that's a big factor, because if you've only can do a certain amount of time, you got life. Everyone's got life. Life doesn't stop for our healing journey. Unfortunately, we can't just press pause. But yeah, it's exciting. Well, do you want to talk a bit more about your book? I'd like to hear.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'll link it in the show notes as well. But yeah, I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
So Running in Slippers describes some of what I was talking about before. It covers about a 5-year period of my life. It starts when my boyfriend broke up with me and my dad passed away. And it takes you through my attempt, and you don't see all of my healing journey, but you start to see things starting to change. Because at the beginning of the book, because a huge part of my book is my critical inner voice. So you definitely see a change from how I'm behaving in the world and what my critical inner voice is saying. And when I started my healing journey in earnest after my attempt, like how I'm actually implementing what I'm learning in my coaching, and how that's changing my inner voice and how that's changing my behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's super vulnerable. And I wrote it that way intentionally because I feel like, kind of going back to what we were saying before, like social media is profoundly filtered and edited. You know, even in real life, we're wearing masks. I don't feel like we're really talking about how hard life is and what we're going through. And when I was going through all of those things before I published the book, I was very high functioning. So nobody knew that I was going through any of this until I published the book.
Yeah,
so it's
me
like,
too.
Let's let's just talk about it. So the whole goal of the book is connection through vulnerability.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I'll put some, like I said, some details in the show notes. So it's been a great chat today. It's gone really quick, actually. I just realized we're already at like 50 minutes. I love to end my episodes with a question about going back. Like, what would you tell your younger self? Anyone, more in a way, like for someone that's, right in the middle of it, has zero boundaries, or, knows that they want something to change, but they don't know what to do. What would you go back and tell them in a way, your younger self?
I would tell them that you deserve to be happy and you're worthy of being happy, because I think the way I was living my life for a long time, it was just based on the belief like I didn't deserve better. So again, I was like frustrated, I was unhappy, I was unfulfilled, I was exhausted, but I felt like this is what life is and it doesn't get better and I don't deserve better. So I just want people to know that if you're not happy and fulfilled on your own, better is available, I promise.
That's right. That's a really good way to put it. Do you have any mantras that you go by? Mine's progress, not perfection.
Oh, I like that one. I don't know if I have any mantras. I think like self-compassion is like,
Yeah.
whenever like I'll start to beat on myself and I'm like, nope, I'm learning, I'm growing.
Perfect.
So, yeah, just anything self-compassion related.
I love that. Do you anything else that you want to share today?
I'll share about my coaching program. It's
Yes.
called Shine from the Inside, and I help high achieving women who are chasing and performing for love and approval to go from that to radiating confidence from within so they can finally feel happy, free, and loved for who they are. This is probably not airing before the 31st. I am having a special on my coaching program that ends on August 31st. But if you tell me that you've heard me on this podcast, it's after August 31st, we can work something out. It's okay. So because I do offer another thing I'll say. I do offer a free call for all new clients. We will talk about whatever you're struggling with, and I will help you as much as I can on the call. And if we do not finish, we can talk about options for working together going forward. But
Perfect.
my program is not for everyone. So if it's not for you, I know other coaches, I have other resources. So the whole goal of the call is to get you help. So I highly recommend setting up this call if you are struggling, because I will get you help, whether it's with me or someone else or whatever. So
Oh, that's so nice of you. And I really, really love that, because that's what I always have people on here that I can see that their vision is so much bigger. And I can really get that through just our conversation today. It's not just about you getting clients. It's really about the collective as a whole. And
yes,
that's really good, because everyone has different modalities and everyone is doing different things. So that's really, really important. So grateful of you to take your time to do that. And,
because I want to help, because again, I struggled for a very long time. So if you're struggling, trust me, I get it. And that's another thing. There's no shame. Sometimes I feel like people, I did this too. I struggled to reach out to my first coach because I had never done it. It felt weird. But again, I had to hit rock bottom. And when you're at that point, like you just really don't care about anything. You're like, I just need help.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you have shame about talking to someone, like, trust me, like it's a safe space, because whatever you've done, I've probably done it too. Trust me.
Yeah. And that's what's so important about you being relatable and like being through it and sharing what you do, because you're not only, you're sharing your story to create awareness, but you're sharing your story just to know that you're there to support people, and then they can understand more and be vulnerable, because especially when it comes to high achieving women, the hardest thing to do is usually ask for help.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's good. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I've really, really appreciated your vulnerability. It's been such a great chat and very inspiring. Your story is very inspiring. So I will put all your details in the show notes so anyone can get in touch with you. So you've got your social media as well and your website.
Yes, my Instagram is Angie Hawkins 808, and my website is Running in Slippers. There's information about my book and my coaching program there. And the event will be past since when this is published, but I may have other events coming up on the website. So if you want to check for any other events.
Of course. I'll link to the book and website and everything. And like Angie mentioned, it's really, really important to grab a take on this call, because you're not only going to be having a great chat with yourself, but you'll also be, have options as well. You're going to be able to really break things down. So that's very, very beneficial.
Yeah, because another thing I want to point out, like for me, I didn't realize why I was struggling. So working with a coach, he was like, oh yes, we can work on X, Y, and Z. And I was like, perfect. So I can see things that you can't see. So
yes,
that's
exactly.
benefit of it.
Because you've been there and done it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, Angie, for your time today.
Yes, thank you so much.
And everybody else, remember, it's progress, not perfection. And I will see you next week.